So, yes, because I don't even know what aspect this is about. So, yeah, Gennady, definitely, hit me up. Hit me up.
All right.
Well, I'm gonna just explain my position a little bit. So I've been pro-gun for probably longer than I've been a leftist, but I have been like looking at like certain like things, and the thing is though, and I guess you can call me quote pro-gun still, but here's the thing. I'll see a lot of like lefties say things like they don't want any they think no regulation is needed. All that's bullshit, for the government to take them.
Yeah,
And like,
and they point to, like, the Black Panthers and shit, and, like, Ronald Reagan, yeah.
which I mean is a very false equivalent, but that's besides the point. The bigger thing is, however, is usually it's like, well, here's the thing. I see all these like stories, I don't know, where like people like, well, here's the thing. I live in Michigan. I've made that no secret at all. And we only just very recently gotten major gun reform.
Sorry about
And
my
just
cat.
like even right after then, a dude had his daughter grab the gun out and shot herself because, well, he didn't kept it safe in. Just right after.
Well, that's an issue. That is an individual issue of when it comes to gun safety. There's not really a whole lot you can do about it once the person owns the gun. There are things you can do to prevent it before they own the gun. For instance, in this country, we have to get a driver's license in order to drive a car. Why? Because cars are 2-ton death machines, and you need to have a little bit of competence in using such a piece of machinery, right? So why don't we have gun licenses where you take a course, however much time, it doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter. It needs to be a sufficient amount of time, but like the exact amount of time, I don't really have to say. So we have courses on gun safety, on how to properly use a gun, what to do, what not to do, sort of like driver's classes, right? Even though those aren't mandatory technically. However, I would say that this should be mandatory.
If you don't mind me to intervene
Yeah.
a little bit, but I do want to ask you a quick question.
Sure.
What do you think about the whole like history of like, I don't know, check for like any sort of mental health issues or whatever, background check when it comes to that?
So I don't really like those because I'm mentally ill myself. Well, here's the thing. What we have right now, in most states, is actually in all states. This is a national thing. If you have been involuntarily committed by a judge to a mental institution, then you cannot own a firearm. And the only reason why you would be involuntarily committed to a mental institution by a judge is if you refuse to go to the psych ward. So they have to have a judge mandate it because you're refusing. So the government sees this as a clear lack of judgment, and you can no longer own a firearm. This is nationwide. Even California, known for its strict gun laws, you only can't buy a gun if you have been involuntarily committed by a judge. So we have that already. The idea that you shouldn't be able to buy a gun if you voluntarily check yourself into a mental hospital, I think that's bullshit. I think that's complete bullshit because, you know, there are times where people are having a crisis and maybe they don't need a gun at that particular moment, but they need help. So they check themselves into a mental institution to get that help, to get their meds sorted out, and so on and so forth. They come out of the psych ward and they start to feel better, they have aftercare, so on and so forth. So people who argue that if you shouldn't be able to buy a gun if you voluntarily check yourself into a mental institution, what if I voluntarily checked myself into a mental institution 10 fucking years ago? A lot can change in 10 years. So I don't think we should expand it any further than it already is in that regard.
Oh, well, I don't disagree there. No, sorry, fuck. But, I mean, what more I'm trying to think of is because, well, why I ask this is because, well, I don't know if you heard of this, but, like, right now, there's a whole, like, discussion about, like, you know, the Oakwood shooting, and shit.
Which one is that? It's hard to keep
like,
track.
Well, basically, alright, so here's the general gist. Forgot all their fucking names, but basically this one family gave their kid a gun for Christmas,
How old was
despite the fact that the kid had like tons of issues apparently, and apparently had hallucinations too. Suffered from hallucinations, and well, guess what? Well, the kid later on used the gun to shoot up his classmates. The kid's already, who's like, I think was like 15 at the time he did that, is already in prison for life. But like now they're trying to figure out, like, you know, what if should the mom and dad be put in prison now? Because
well, yeah, of course they should. They gave a gun to someone who wasn't legally allowed to have one. That is a federal offense. They should absolutely go to jail.
Yeah.
But the thing is though is that when it comes to like people with mental health issues, you know, people often say, "Oh, how about a mental health check in order to be able to buy a gun?" Right? Well, the mental health check that they're probably going to do is a PHQ-9 test. Now, have any of you ever taken a PHQ-9 test before, or do you even know what that is?
Not sure, actually.
It's basically a test to scale your depression, and it's also notoriously easy to bullshit your way through it. So, mandatory PHQ-9 tests are just... It's a rubber stamp. It's not gonna work. People can easily bullshit their way through that unless they're just, like, very clearly just, you know, in a psychotic state and are acting erratic or whatever. Because you'll be asked questions like, have you experienced suicidal ideation in the past 2 weeks? Have you wanted to go to sleep and not wake up the past 2 weeks? You could easily bullshit your way through that. So I don't think there's really, if say that kid were like of the age where he was legally allowed to own a firearm, I like there would be nothing to be able. You can't really do anything about that. You can, however, with that particular situation.
Okay, real quickly, hold on.
Yeah.
Real quickly,
Yeah.
I just found out. I think I got the situation wrong. It was Oaks Field. It was Oaks Field, not Oakswood.
Oh, okay.
I think.
And that was like
Continue.
in your state, or?
Yeah, it's like it happened in Michigan, somewhere in Michigan, but now they're like it's all over the news here. I don't know, and like, you know, the judge is like, you know, they're all debating like rather or not, well, the parents should be
it shouldn't
put on trial.
it shouldn't even be a debate. I mean, they broke the law. Period. That is federal law. But I think the way that could have been prevented is to because when like driver's ed school, for instance, right? If again, it's not mandatory, but if you go through driver's ed and you pass the test, you are able to actually have lower car insurance because you actually pass driver's school. So I think we could apply that, make it mandatory, and also somehow maybe make it mandatory as well to also buy a safe for the firearms, or some sort of mechanism, a lock, something, which of course locks can be picked, but I imagine most kids aren't going to have that ability. So yeah, like a mandatory lock of mechanism of some sort as well, which I'm personally a gun owner. I purchased a gun and it came with a lock. But I think that there should be some sort of mandatory training to allow people to exhibit their competency to own these weapons, because these are very dangerous weapons. And in my area, for instance, right, I walked into the gun store. I looked around for a bit, picked the one I wanted. They did the national background check, which basically, again, only checks for if you have any felonies or if you've been involuntarily committed by a judge. Took about 15 minutes. They gave me my gun. Have a nice day. It was that easy. That easy. I don't think I don't think it should be that easy. I think it should be harder. And but there's another factor to this as well, and I think that it's culture. And I know this is sometimes a conservative talking point. It's not, but this isn't me saying it's not the guns, it's the culture. It's the guns and the culture combined. So, if you look at Canada, for instance, right? They have sensible gun laws, and but you're still able to own firearms. In fact, Canada has a vibrant gun culture over there. Yet, oddly enough, you don't see any of these, not nearly to the magnitude of mass shootings that you're seeing here in America. So, I think it's a legislation issue, in part, but also I think a lot of it is a cultural issue. I think America is just a very violent culture. We fetishize violence. We fetishize, especially for boys and young men, being this badass fucking Terminator, like War Machine, whatever. Toxic masculinity, stuff like that, I think is very prevalent in this country. And I think a lot of that plays a role too.
Even I used to idealize that kind of a little bit when I was younger.
Yeah, no, yeah. Luckily, I don't. Well, I did hold some toxic masculine beliefs, but not to a ridiculous extent. I wasn't full Andrew Tate, but I was I can't cry in front of anybody because that shows definitely weakness. Not that one. Yeah, I wasn't saying you were. I was just clarifying that I wasn't. It was just more I can't cry in front of anyone because that'll show people that I'm weak. Like that kind of thing. So I think that plays a role in it as well. But I think that, again, the situation you mentioned and many more could easily be solved if we just treated guns like we treat cars. Because I imagine that if I didn't need a driver's license and to pass a driver's test, and I could just go out and buy a car and drive, I imagine the rate of car accidents would go up quite a bit. I don't think you need to be a fucking fortune teller to guess that one. You know what I mean? So, I think there are sensible things we can do. And then of course there's the anarchist argument of, oh well, you want more government, you want the government to say what you can and can't do, and da 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 da. Well,
here, hold on, can I intervene when it comes to that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Well, I think like a bigger thing, like I don't know, it's like I don't know. That's also a thing like that annoys me. It's like, well, when people say it's like, well, oh, that's going to involve more government. It's like, well, okay, don't you already support many government reforms when it comes to, I don't know, healthcare and shit?
Mm.
I mean, that's not the same thing, but I don't know. It's like, I mean, it's like, what makes this different?
So in order to achieve an anarchist society, however you want to define it, it doesn't matter. But like a society,
you kind of need guns. Yes, I'm fully aware.
We went into that.
I read about this like fucking like.
Well, I know. I'm not womansplaining. Okay, I'm just making a point. In order to achieve an anarchist society, you need to be able. It takes time, basically. You can't do it overnight, as much as like the Twitter leftists like to believe. And government and the state exist. I'm sorry, but they do. So, why not use it to our advantage instead of our disadvantage, right? So, while we do have a state, let's pass sensible laws that are going to contribute to good in the world instead of bad in the world. So let's pass laws on workers' rights. Let's pass laws on, healthcare. Let's have universal healthcare and da 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 da. It's better to have a, say, social democracy than it is fascism. Right, and of course you have some Twitter lefties. Oh, they're the same thing, but they're crazy. They're crazy people. A chatter, Tame, a friend of the show, in fact, co-host of the show, pointed out, didn't Bakunin literally talk about using the state to our advantage? I'm pretty sure he did, and if he did, he's right. He's absolutely right. Because if we're going to have a state, which we have, whether you like it or not, wouldn't it be better to have people in power that are ideologically closer to anarchism than fascism? Wouldn't that be better? Wouldn't that be more utilitarian, one might say?
Yeah.
And that's kind of my point, is that in an anarchist society, we as the people will decide what happens with guns. And, if you look at the polls, the overwhelming majority of people want gun reform, right? So it's like, anarchy doesn't mean no rules. Anarchy doesn't mean everybody gets a gun, every toddler gets an AR-15, you know what I mean? That's not what anarchism is. And yeah, there are some Twitter users that are like that. But, no. But I think to bring this to a central point, we really haven't disagreed on anything. This has really been a friendly discussion more than a debate, but...
Yeah, surprisingly, haven't found anything. But like I don't know. I guess like the thing is, I'm like my biggest thing is I have more like a problem with like certain like I don't know like. Well, I mean, it's not even just like the whole like no reform at all. There's also a problem I have with like certain arguments. Like, let me explain. About the whole like, oh well, hey, if you get rid of guns, well, you still have like knives and shit.
Yeah,
Well, here's
but
my
knives kill less people. Yeah.
Yeah, and also here's the thing. Guns are a lot fucking quicker.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Like,
of course. Yeah. No, if a leftist says that, they're literally becoming a dumb conservative. Like, you think that if I go to fucking Times Square in New York with a fucking knife, you really think I'm gonna be able to fucking kill as many people as I could with an AR-15 before I'm apprehended?
well,
Hell
actually, I was
no!
mainly
Hell
talking about.
no!
Well, I was actually mainly talking about killing yourself with it.
Oh well, oh well. If we're talking about suicide, there's a billion and one methods to do that. Uh, Getting rid of guns isn't gonna do shit about suicide. That's not gonna do shit.
Oh, no, of course not.
In fact, it might actually lead to people because it statistically is the most successful method. Let's be real here. It may lead to more people failing and becoming deformed the rest of their life. So it actually might have a worse effect, to be honest. Because if you're suicidal and you want to die, you're gonna fucking try to die, no matter what, right? And I don't know. There's a million and one methods to do that. I mean, I'm not gonna get into that because TOS, and also I'm not trying to teach anybody how to kill themselves. But yeah, like guns aren't even a part of the equation. I in my opinion.
Well, I can see that. Well, more my problem is like, okay, well, it's like when we're talking about that, it's like, well, I think like a common argument that I see from like pro-gun control advocates is also like from a certain standpoint as someone who almost who had like for example had like let's say a moment where they tried to use a gun to end themselves and like use that on a certain like I don't know as use that on that perspective and I don't know that's more like what I was referring to where like some also like like and even kind of me in the past use the argument, well, knives will still kill you and stuff.
Right, but it won't kill as many people.
Yeah, I know. I don't disagree with.
Yeah. Yeah, but when it comes to suicide, and a lot of people bring that into the argument when it comes to the gun issue. I think they're looking at it all the wrong way. We shouldn't be asking the question, how can we prevent suicides by, more gun control? The question should be, why are people suicidal? Right? Why?
That's a very good question.
Well, there are a lot of reasons, but I think one of the most pervasive ones is the world sucks. The world sucks. So, maybe, just a thought, instead of focusing on the guns, the tools, because, what, are you going to ban ropes? Are you going to ban, whatever?
That's a position I fully agree with. It's just a position I completely forgot I had.
Yeah,
at the moment.
That's totally fine. I just wanted to say that the way to prevent suicide is to create a better world. Because if we live in a better world, more people will be happy. And if more people are happy, less people will be suicidal. So, work on creating a better world. Don't try to fix the symptom, fix the sickness.
I think that's a good conclusion.
That also, I'll go a step further. I'm sorry, Roke, you can go.
I was just gonna say, I think that's a good way of looking at it. Address the symptoms. Address like the root causes. I hate like people always focusing on like the after effects and the things that like don't go to the core of like why is this
Yeah,
shit
I
happening.
mean, and if you want to point to statistics, you know, if my pontificating wasn't enough for you, from my understanding, you don't get guns in Japan. Point is, they have much, much, much stricter gun laws than we do, but yet their suicide rate is higher. Why? Well, it's because their culture fucking sucks. That's why. Right? Their work culture and stuff like that, it fucking sucks. That's why. It's the fucking, like, you know, so, I don't even think suicide should be a part of the equation when it comes to the gun question. I think that, guns are tools, and, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And, you know, they're dangerous. They're very dangerous tools, just like cars are. And we need sensible regulation in order to prevent as many people as possible from getting them in the wrong hands. I mean, that's... I think we pretty much just agree on everything.
Yeah, honestly, I honestly felt like, you know, maybe I might have disagreed on this one certain thing or not, but no, in fact, we surprisingly agree a lot here.
I mean, do we have anything else to even say on guns? I mean, we pretty much agree with everything, so is there anything in that brain of yours you could possibly conjure up that I might disagree with?
Well, fuck, well, okay, well... At the moment, it's kind of hard, to be honest, because, like, I don't know, I actually thought, like, this may have been, like, a more of, like, I don't know, I felt like, I don't know, I guess, like, the main argument I'm going to ask is, like, well, you know, we were all talking about, like, anarchism before.
Yeah.
Well, I want to know, like, if we ever actually go to an anarchist society, how are we ever going to deal with guns?
Well, I mentioned that earlier, maybe you forgot, but I literally said that, in my view, anarchism is the purest form of democracy. Some anarchists will disagree with that. I don't care. Anarchy is the purest form of democracy. And I think that the overwhelming majority of the people, believe in sensible gun regulation. So I think that, the shops for guns that are, you know, democratically ran, you know, should, you know, have we should still have these systems in place. We should still have driver's licenses and stuff like that. Some sort of identification that's kind of important for, like, society and stuff, you know. So I think that we should also have gun licenses, you know. If that makes me not an anarchist to believe that we should democratically, you know, choose to have gun licenses in order to reduce gun deaths, then okay, fine. I guess I'm just not an anarchist. Tough shit. I don't really care. It doesn't matter. The label means nothing. And Andrew pointed out a good point from earlier. Remember, former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was assassinated by a makeshift firearm. Yeah, exactly. Like in Japan, they they literally have to make their own fucking guns in order to get them, but yet their suicide rate is still incredibly high. So it seems as if, you know, getting rid of guns doesn't really help much with suicide rates. It's more about your society sucking.